Good afternoon. I'm Carol Olson Day of the New York Times. Welcome to the 11th Annual Arts and Leisure Weekend. 4 days of 15 Times Talks. We're live here at the Times Center and live around the world on the web. And today we are honored to have such a distinguished guest with us, one who has had an extraordinary impact on the musical and intellectual life of his times. Through his operas, his symphonies, his compositions for his own ensemble, his Oscar-nominated film scores, and his wide-ranging collaborations with leading classical, rock, pop, and world music artists. His Symphony No. 9 will have its U.S. premiere at Carnegie Hall on January 31st, his 75th birthday. And next month, a 4-day festival of his music and artists who have inspired him will celebrate his birthday and his contribution to the arts at the Park Avenue Armory. You'll hear much more about him and his work from our moderator. Since joining the Times in 1995, she has written about everything from cultural institutions to architecture to performing arts for the arts pages, media for the business section, and city news for the metro section. Before coming to the Times, she was an associate producer at ABC News and a reporter at the New York Observer. Her experience covering performers, both emerging and established from all the arts, makes her the perfect interviewer for today's discussion. So please join me in welcoming Robin Pogrebin and our very special guest, Philip Glass.
Welcome, everyone. It's great that this is such a good crowd, and welcome to Philip. We've been having a nice time chatting backstage.
Thank you.
You almost forgot to come out. So, most of these things are conversations that are very wide-ranging, and we happen to have a real kind of news peg with Philip today, which is the 75th birthday. Happy birthday in advance.
Thank you.
And I actually just want to run through what this year is going to include, because it really is so extensive and impressive, and a real opportunity to kind of immerse ourselves in Glassdom. And so he's curated a week of events for the Park Avenue Armory's Tune In Music Festival in February, including a complete performance of music in 12 parts with the Philip Glass Ensemble. We will see the New York City premiere of Another Look at Harmony, and the return of your first and perhaps most revered opera, Einstein on the Beach, which premieres in France in March and reaches BAM in September. You perform your only evening of chamber music in New York City with Tim Fain in the Met Museum's Temple of Dendur in April. The first fully staged North American performance of your Kepler opera will be featured at the Spoleto Festival in June. And you conclude with the world premiere of The Perfect American, a new opera about the death of Walt Disney in next year, January. And your first memoir will be published this next year, or this year if you're on schedule. We can talk more about that.
Why?
And you're the subject of a Beck-curated remix project. So it's your usual awesome output. How does it feel to kind of be doing this and marking this?
I want to add the evening with Patti Smith called The Poet Speaks, which will also be at the Armory.
Okay.
That's a concert of poetry and music that we've been doing off and on for 4 or 5 years, and so it'll be there also. But that's also a special kind of event. Does
this year feel significant to you in this way, to have all this happening at once? And
Well, it's always like that. These kinds of festivals get very intense. This 75th year has been particularly so because the intention seems, the 75th celebration seems to slow me down. Because there's so much I'm doing already, and then on top of it, then I have to stop and do the celebration stuff. But we could have done the same thing and not called it the anniversary, and it would have been fine with me. Mm-hmm. But that puts it in a special light, and I'm trying to pay attention to that too.
Has it made you kind of existential at all, or thoughts
You mean,
about?
am I having anxiety about it? No,
Is it like reaching 75? Does it feel?
no, not really. I'm delighted to be 75. A friend of mine wrote me recently and said, "Isn't it great we got this far?" And it's a friend, Laurie Anderson. I've known her for a long time, and she noticed that we've known each other for 40 years, and we're still here. So that becomes a cause for celebration in and of itself. But in terms of these kinds of festivals are nice when they happen. This particular one, like the one at the Armory, because it's so many different things.
Right. I mean, your pieces are in it, but so are many people. Other people.
Well, I wanted a piece of Allen Ginsberg there, and Hal Wilner is producing a new performance of Kaddish, which was just a poem before, but now it's got Bill Wiesel is writing music for it, and I haven't seen it. I don't think anyone's seen it yet, but so that's something that is not mine. There's also a marathon kind of afternoon of other singers and performers.
And your son is doing something.
He'll be singing as part of the songwriters part of that. This is the Armory is a particularly nice one because it's very wide-ranging. The funny thing about Another Look at Harmony is that I think it has never been played in New York or rarely in the United States. It was written in 1978.
Wow.
And so it's really like, it's, it would be memory lane if anyone remembered it, but if you never, but it'll be for the first time for many people.
Well, this is a nice opportunity to remind us of it. Let's hear our first clip, if we can, which is Another Look at Harmony, a little excerpt. Applaud.
Thank you. For the occasion coming up, we'll have 160 voices. And there's a children's choir also, which wasn't in the original, but the Brooklyn Children's Choir will be singing, taking part of that. We work with them a lot. So we've actually added something to it, which is the children's choir. So
Nice.
in that space, it's a beautiful space. Do you know the Armory?
Mm-hmm. Huge.
It's like, if you can imagine something about as big as 2 big football fields, but it's in New York, right in the city, right on 67th Street. It's huge. It's hard to believe when you get inside. I said, am I still in New York? Because it's really...
So will you go to all of it? Will you be there?
You bet I will. Yeah. And I'm not the only one who will be going. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful place. I've been to a number of the things that they've done there, and it's the acoustics. They have some very. It sounds good there, believe it or not. I mean, in a place.
Well, they've just done this whole renovation, and it really becoming.
That might not necessarily include sound, but in this case, the sound people there are very, very good, and Jennifer Tipton is doing a special lighting for it.
And what about sets and?
Well, there are no real sets, but Jennifer there will be projections I know that for Alan's piece, there'll be projections. And I just talked to Jennifer about the lights, and she'll be doing lighting, which we've never done before. Music in 12 Parts is a 4-hour piece with some breaks. Not unlike Einstein, which is 5 hours and doesn't have breaks.
Is that right? You can't get up?
You can get up. Yes, you can. In fact, we encourage people to get up. A surprising number of people don't get up. But we always tell people to get up and take a break. But it's
Can they eat while they watch?
I've seen them do that too. I remember I was, when we did this in '76, I was at the old Phoenicia before it burned down. And I was playing right behind me where the couple of old Italian guys with brown bags. And And they sat there the whole evening, and periodically they would reach in and take out a sandwich and eat and watch. And they were right behind me, they were in the first row, and I noticed that they didn't leave. Wow. But I left. Sometime I would go and come back. There's nothing like that on this occasion. When we do the music in 12 parts, there'll be a little break between. We do it in 4 parts, so 4 sections. And then there's a dinner break, and then we do it again. But it's the first time we've actually are doing a lighting design with it. And I had a meeting with Jennifer yesterday about it, and I can tell you authoritatively that I have no idea what she's going to do.
One of the things that struck me about the venues for this year is that it includes the Met Opera, which it turns out to be a first, and Carnegie Hall, and the New York Philharmonic, I think. And it just was like Philip finally makes it in the mainstream.
Yeah, but
do you feel that way?
Robin, I've been hearing that for a long time.
You have?
And I've always just about made it in the mainstream, and somehow I just never quite made it. And so I have to make it again and again and again.
But the Met Opera's a big
Well, you
step.
know, I have to remind some people who probably forgot. In 1984, I did the music for the opening of the Olympics in Los Angeles.
Right.
And that was, I mean, you can't get any more mainstream than that. They told me...
Well, the Truman Show.
Wait a second, this is a good one. 2 billion people watched this. I don't know if they heard it, but they watched it.
So, I mean, does it feel like some kind of poetic justice a little bit, or not
No, I don't
really?
think of it that way. I don't need poetic justice because I've never been treated unjustly. I mean, I've been able to play music. When I started ensemble when I was 30, I was playing concerts, and you know, I never felt there was always an audience. It was smaller when I was younger. It got bigger slowly, but I always had people who loved the music and supported it. I never felt that anything needed to be corrected. It just got bigger, which happened in time, which is a little surprising because it got bigger than I thought it was going to get. I mean, now I don't go around to hear the operas done very much anymore because it's just too. I wouldn't have time to do anything.
Right.
But so it's. How do I feel about it? I don't know. I don't really think about it very much. I'm still very much working on new pieces and thinking about rehearsals and correcting scores, and I'm not in an archival mood at the moment, and haven't been. I never have been. It doesn't seem to be a mood that I'm ever going to get in.
Even this year, like, it's not as if you're stopping to celebrate.
I'm stopping to talk to you, Robin, and our friends here.
We're so grateful for that.
Well, I am too. Thank you.
I think it's important to kind of address this issue of acceptance, even though you've had to repeatedly, because you've always said that you just don't care.
Well,
and
yeah, but
let me finish.
It's like one of the debates,
You
huh?
said in a documentary about you, which I highly recommend to all of you, there's a lot of music in the world. You don't have to listen to mine. But in the early days, you would lose 25% of your audience. People would literally walk out. And you've said it's never
I think
kind of hits your
25%
heart.
is a very kind estimate. But thank you for that, Robin. But
So does it really not affect you?
I don't care. What I mean to say is, let me amend that a little bit. It won't really make any difference. Some people like it, some people don't like it, but they feel that way about Beethoven. I mean, for God's sake. And some people don't like the Beatles. Do you believe that? I mean, there are people that don't like what you and I like. I don't even know if we like what you and I like. But that's one of the I think what the essential thing is, what I've said to people is that when people sometimes say, you know, I really don't know how to listen to music. Can you give me advice? And I say, well, you know, you don't really have to listen. Well, you find something else you like. I mean, there's a lot of music out there, and some people like my music, and some people don't like it. But it's not going to make a big difference. But I don't think people should get stressed out about it. On the other hand, if they pay attention to it in a certain way and give it a little time, they may become big fans, and that does happen.
What about reviews? Do you care about those or pay attention to them?
Well, of course, I read the good ones. But I think no one reads the bad ones. However, your friends will never forget that you got them anyway, especially your friends. And sometimes your relatives who, I have one relative who would send me reviews in the mail, whether they were good or bad. And I would say, gee, I wonder if my cousin actually read the review before she sent it, because they could be I would get these insulting reviews in the mail. But, you know, it's a kind of a game in a way. But the thing about art music, if I can call it that, or operas for that matter, they're not like Broadway shows that get closed by bad reviews. If I have an opera running at the Met, it's not going to make any difference whether it has a good review or bad reviews. The board of directors might, or the people might like it. Everyone likes to get a good review. But generally speaking, the concerts are going to be sold. And I've reached the point now where most concerts will be pretty well sold out before the reviews are even written. And so.
What about, though, Waiting for the Barbarians, for example, in the documentary, you talked about how you had to bang down some doors to get someone to produce it. I mean, is there still that element of...
Yeah, one of the misconceptions is that I can do anything I want.
Right.
And that is totally not true. I have to wait to do the things I can eventually get to do them, but Waiting for the Barbarians was an opera. It was a book written by John Curtsey, a beautiful book. And I wanted to do it in 1990, and I got the rights from it in 1990, but it was 10 years before I got a company to produce it. And the only reason I got a company to do it was that the story made them they thought I was writing about George Bush, which was very unlikely.
But it was a European country, wasn't it?
No, it's an imaginary country, so therefore they thought it was America, and that it was about...
But the company that produced
the book is a lot about torture. And so when this stuff was going on with, they said, and there were people, and the Europeans did it in Europe because they thought it was about America, and it wasn't really. It was about human beings, but it didn't matter what country it was in. So there was a certain misunderstanding about that, and the piece was seen actually in Austin, Texas, but it hasn't been seen in the United States, and partly because it's been labeled as a kind of political piece, which it was, but it wasn't about any particular country.
A literal piece or a liberal piece?
Literal?
Is that what you said? It's been labeled?
I don't think I said either.
Oh.
Did anybody hear what I said?
Political piece.
Are you listening?
Okay.
Well,
but isn't Europe, does it tend to be more receptive to your stuff, do you think? More open?
I've worked in Europe at the beginning more often than here, but you have to understand that the arts are supported in a different way, so that it was easier for companies to bring me there because they had the money. I've always preferred to work at home because I feel the music belongs here, and I feel that my best audiences are here. However, I was, for a long time, and it continues to be so, most of the operas have been performed in Europe before they were performed here. It's just the way we do business here, but I don't think we're less educated or cultivated. It's the way we'd support the arts here. It doesn't encourage new pieces to be done, but if they become successful, they can be done. It's a bit of struggle that way, but I really prefer I prefer an American tour to a European tour anytime.
This is a year where we've seen City Opera unable to hack it at Lincoln Center anymore because of the financial struggles. I mean, do you worry for the art form, and also do you wonder where your new audiences will come from?
Let's put it, Robin, I think that, and there are other things related to that, like what do we do about people who make records, and what do we do about free music? And
right.
The economic issue covers a lot of things. It can cover the City Opera, it can cover anybody who's making records and used to make a living making records. And I think the best, we have to really wait, and I think things are redefining themselves. There's no question about it. We may be heading to a time when we simply don't make money from selling records, or even we make money in different ways. But the formulas that we use to support the arts is just changing. I'm not sure that in the end it'll be worse. Yep. There's a certain amount of panic, especially, it hasn't happened that much to my area of the music world, which art music is never supported much by record sales anyway. So it hasn't been, we haven't been hurt that much by that. But still, we see that things are shifting around. On the other hand, what if let's say that, let's imagine something a little bit different, Robin. What if not only was music free on the internet, but it was free to go to concerts? What if it was free to go anywhere? What if museums and opera houses were free? And we just found another way to support them. That's a kind of a breathtaking idea, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So is this the beginning? Are we moving in that way? I don't know. But when I say, well, what does this mean? That's something that's an interesting question. What if you want to see Satyagraha at the Met recently, to get a really good seat was $150. That's not considered a lot at the Met. But a lot of people can't do that. Fortunately, there are rush seats and there are $20 seats. There are ways of doing it, but some people just couldn't do it. Then now they have simulcast, so we can see it in theaters for much less. So there are other things that are starting to present themselves. I think what we're doing is finding, it's always been a struggle in this country to support the arts because though in fact, for many of us, it's a core experience and it's even a core part of our education. There's no question. When I was growing up, when you went to school, they handed you an instrument and you played in the band. We don't do that anymore. We don't even have, it was a way to move through society in a different way. People began careers that never would have had careers otherwise. And besides that, we learned certain kinds of discipline. We learned about attention. We learned about responsibility. We play music. It was everybody knows. Tons of studies are made about this, but we've destroyed music education in the schools to the detriment of the students. This is a tough country in that way. We've been very harsh about that. At the same time, I don't know any country that loves music or the arts more than Americans do. So this is a complicated situation in that way, especially, and now we're exporting arts to Europe. I mean, the movies and the paintings and the music, it's an important part of what we export.
Well, do you feel more pressure to compete with this electronic age we're in? I mean, are you wondering, who are your
No, I want to be part of it.
Fans going to be?
I want to be part of it. I'm not going to compete with it. I'm going to be one of the people that are playing that. I've started with records and I've done other things, like I own the publishing of the music. I haven't given it to
Since the 1970s, you've done that,
right?
right?
Since early times. But I felt that a very important way is for artists to take responsibility for that. And so it's not because I think it's so great to do it, but we don't have any choice to do it. So the difficulty is what we say in America: what doesn't kill you makes you strong. The trouble is that it does kill some people. And the thing that I'm most concerned about are the I knew tremendously talented people who never had real careers because they didn't have the temperament or the strength or the I don't know what it takes, the energy to put up with it. And so the people that survive are the survivors. But we've probably lost an enormous amount of talented people because of kind of an indifference we have. We say that if you survive this and this and this, then you can have a career. But there are painters and writers and people who've never had careers we've lost that. There's a loss for us in that.
Well, do you have a sense of who's coming to hear your stuff these days? And is it like an old loyal guard, or are there some new?
That's the interesting question, because generally speaking, if you go to a concert, the audience has gotten older with the performer. So if you go to a Rolling Stone concert, there'll be people in their 50s and 60s there. There'll be kids in their 20s and 30s, but not that many. The curious thing about my audiences is that they've stayed young.
Really?
So I feel that there's some kind of Dorian Gray thing going on here, except I'm getting older and the audience stays the same age. It's kind of reversed in a way. But yet, that's interesting. And I've pondered that. I have some ideas about why it's happened in terms of my music, and it has to do with the language of the music itself. A little bit complicated to get into right now, but basically, let's put it this way. I'll give you the shorthand version of it. The language of my music is a binary language. The language of the internet is a binary language. I began writing in a binary language when years and years ago I began to work with Ravi Shankar. And I learned the system of rhythmic structure of Indian music a long, long time in the 60s. It's a binary language.
What does that mean, binary?
Oh, ones and zeros.
Okay, great.
Got it.
Two things are
So
happening.
what that means is that when you're hearing this music, what you're really hearing is an expression. It's a music that is based on ones and zeros, and that's a ridiculous oversimplification of it. And yet, it gets to something which is essential, which is that what's interesting about it is the complexity of simplicity that's interesting. I just made that up, by the way.
People, yes, that's good. What's interesting is to think about, though, is your stuff alternative anymore? Because,
Alternative to what?
well, there was a time when it was, breaking ground, and now there's maybe there's a lot of Philip Glass type people who have
Now
followed
we're
in
going
your
to find
footsteps.
out, because in September we will be doing Nights Out on the Beach here, which in '76 was considered
Right, groundbreaking.
groundbreaking. Some people will be hearing it for the first time. Some people will be hearing it after not having heard it for 20 or 30 years. How that piece will impact on us as listeners is going to be a very, and I'm not going to venture a guess right now, but that will be the moment when we can start to answer that question.
When I was going to interview you, a lot of people said, "Oh, you're interviewing Philip Glass, Philip Glass, Philip Glass."
And they had a question.
Just an
for
old
you.
joke, right? To repeat your name. But clearly, repetition is a big part of what people associate with your work, whether or not you like that or don't. I don't know. But can you talk about your attraction to it, why that is sort of a signature
we started
aspect?
to talk about it in a certain way when I was talking about this binary language business and about the complexity of simplicity. That is partly about that. The difficulty with the music is that it doesn't repeat. So that what
Doesn't actually repeat.
So now this is what happens. So this happened to me numerous times when a conductor has taken a piece of mine and they're about to. I go to the rehearsal, and someone has evidently told them that there's nothing to do because it just repeats. I've seen this happen. They open the score. The orchestra's there. I'm there. He opens the score, and they said, "Oh my God! Every measure is different."
Wow.
And now, if they had looked at it ahead of time, they could have. So this kind of thing, this can be profoundly embarrassing.
Yeah.
To most of us, it won't matter. Most of us don't have to conduct the music and forget about it. It doesn't matter. But in point of fact, in order to make it listenable, it has to change.
Right.
It's the way that it changes and the way that it grows that the structure grows out of that. You're actually, if you're happy to go to sleep, then it doesn't matter. And people say, well, but I remember when I was around 9 years old, I went to hear the Baltimore Symphony in Baltimore, where I grew up. And my mother was a school teacher, and a friend of hers printed the program so we could go to the orchestra. And I went very often to the orchestra we would go. And the conductor, a very good conductor from Reginald Stewart, Canadian guy, he was doing the ninth, Beethoven's one of the, maybe the fifth. And there was a guy in front of me with a big bald head. And Reginald Stewart went like that, and the guys went like that. And he slept beautifully for the next 40 minutes. I've never forgotten that. If people can sleep through Beethoven, they can sleep through me.
Does it
I can't take it personally.
You can't. Does it ever insult you? I saw one description of it as like a record player thing in the groove.
If only, let me say this, Robin. If only if it was that simple, I wouldn't have to work so hard at making it work. The trouble is that the effect, of course, is to make what any artist wants to do. They want to make what is very difficult seem easy. The art of the guy who can make a beautiful pot, or a woman who makes a beautiful painting or a poem, the beauty of it is that it seems so easy when they do it. But then you try to throw the pot, or you try to write the poem, and it turns out it's not that easy. The gifted and the complete artist will always make his work look easy. So, am I insulted?
That's a nice intro for our next clip, which is Do you remember?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh,
You know,
music in 12 parts,
yeah.
part 1.
Okay.
Let's hear for the variation, not the repetition. Let's
Well, this
listen
one
for
does
that.
repeat a lot.
Okay. Roll it.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say about that piece in particular? Any defense you want to make?
No, it'll take too long. But basically, what that piece really is, it's a chord, which is F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, just that. And what the players are doing are playing that chord in all kinds of different ways at the same time. If you listen to it from one point of view, it's just actually one chord. But if you hear all the parts, it's all the parts that can come out of that chord. It's just something to do, something to listen to.
I heard you describe music as kind of this river constantly running there, and it's just about you listening to it and hearing it, not about your writing it. I mean, is it really like that? It's just
Well, there are two
you?
parts of it. Well, part of it is, there are two parts of writing. The part of the writing is hearing it to begin with. And that's hard enough, because in fact that takes a certain amount of training, so you can actually hear accurately, so you know what it is that you're hearing. The second part is writing down what you hear, which is also another problem. It's not without, in one way, of course, it is about hearing. It's always about listening. Music is about listening, and poetry is about speaking, and dancing is about moving, and
But you're
painting is about
creating it.
seeing. That's a good question. I'm not sure about that.
Really?
When you get into that, or am I just listening? And is it a kind of creative listening? I'm not sure. These are things I've been wondering about for more than 50 years. I don't really know the answer to these questions. I mean, we can. I'd rather. I know that I don't. I know that what I used to think, I don't think anymore. But.
Which is what? What do you mean?
Well, I used to think. Well, the reason I began writing music when I was very young, when I was about 15. I began writing music because I'd been playing for a long time, but I wanted to find out where music came from. And I thought if I wrote music, I would find out. I would find out where it came from. I never did find out. Not from that way. About 30 years later, I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. I wasn't asking where music came from. The real question was, what is music? And I thought about that for another 15 to 20 years. And then I figured that was the wrong question. And then I finally, I was talking, and very much like this, I was talking to some people, and with someone that was helping me, as you are, and someone said, well, what is music? And I said without thinking, music is a place. It's a place like Ann Arbor or Minneapolis, or it's a place. It's as real as any place that you know. And I said, gee, did I say that? It makes you stop and think, doesn't it? I've been thinking about that ever since I said that. And yet there is something about that I find very appealing, because like any place, it's something that you can recognize, that you can see, and that's solid. It's as solid as any other place. Now, the interesting thing about dance is like that too. Dance and music, they're these art forms which disappear when the dance is over, the dance is gone. When the music is turned off, you don't hear it anymore. Where did it go to? And yet, we say that these things are as real as the table and the chair and the rug, and as real as all of that. And I do believe that's true. So when we start talking about music that way, we really start to get into a very, I think it's not so abstract, it's a very real place, and maybe the most real thing. And I think that you don't have to be a composer to know that.
But you go there every day.
Yes, I do. And I go there at night as well.
That's why 3 marriages have ended. I'm kidding. Your 8th symphony, you had said actually along these lines, was difficult, which I thought was fascinating. That when I wrote this, I was at the limits of what I could hear. I could barely hear it. I'm writing down what I think I hear, but I'm not really
exactly
sure.
True. That's
and I love the
true.
8th symphony, by the way, which I really commend to.
Can you hear it?
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. What I was trying to describe was what the effort, the effort that the composer makes. You can call it the creative effort. And it will be the same for the painter, or for the dancer, or for the writer. To bring it down from the world of imagination to the world that we all live in, to make that, to transfer it to that way. That's where the effort is. And when I say it's the limits of what I can hear, that's very true. I mean, with that particular symphony, Dennis Davis was conducting it here at Brooklyn Academy of Music 4 or 5 years ago. And we had another composer-conductor, Dante Anzolini, who, by the way, was conducting the Satyagraha that was at the Met recently. Very good musician. And we took a break, and Dante said, you know, the second clarinet's playing the wrong part. And Dennis and I looked at each other and said, what are you talking about? He said, he played the wrong note. And I said, Dennis, did you hear that? He said, I didn't hear it. I said, I didn't hear it. Let's go take a look. Well, there I've been taking a break, so we go and take a look at the note. He was playing the wrong note. Dante had heard it. When we say the limits of what we can hear, you see, we can hear in parts too. I can hear this part, maybe 2 or 3 parts there, and then I can hear another part, and then I try to put them together. Am I hearing them all together? When I hear, this is what I'm talking about. When our training is about hearing. The music is about hearing. I said that from the beginning. Dancing is about moving. That's what that is. Poetry is about speaking, and seeing, and painting is about seeing. That's what it is. So the exercise of the composer, or anyone who's performing that matter, the violinist who's playing, he might not even be the performer, he might not be the composer, but in order to play the piece, he has to hear it. He has to hear it a moment before he plays it. And while he's playing it, he has to be hearing the next note. This is when you start thinking about it, it's very, very far out. One of the things that I do, I've kept my hand in this performing. I do a lot of playing. And at one point, I began to understand what the art of the creator, of the performer is, to recreate the work. Because I was playing music of mine written a long time ago, but I found that I was playing it differently than I wrote it. I was in front of people, and I was pedaling it differently. I was in a different tempo. I said, oh, I wonder what's going to happen now. And I was just playing. And I found myself entering the music in a different way.
Do you have a preference as to playing it yourself or hearing others do it?
I like to play it myself. It's a satisfying feeling to know that I'm getting paid for playing. But apart from that, I do like to play myself, but there are people who play far better than I do. I mean, I can't play the violin the way Tim Fain can, and I can't conduct an orchestra the way Dennis Davis can, and I can't sing the way some of the singers can. I mean, Richard Croft was a fantastic Gandhi in this last performance.
You don't ever sing, do you?
Not that you would know. But the point is that, but I do like playing, because when I'm playing, I'm now entering the music in a different way. I can absolutely enter the music now as a performer and not as the composer. That took me a long, long time to do that. And I began playing when I was very young. It's only happened in the last 15 or 20 years. So I would say most of my life I never heard it that way. At a certain point, I realized that I was now listening the way a performer does. And I was, as soon as I realized that, I was kind of lost in admiration for all the performers who when we say that composers often say, oh, they're just playing the music. That's not true. They're taking the music from the page and making it real. They're realizing the music, to use the word in the absolute meaning of the word, that the music becomes real when they play it. I don't teach regularly, but sometimes I'll be talking to students if I'm playing at a school. And I was talking to some students and some composers and said, the library, the music library, said, yeah, when you look up there, what do you see? And they say, well, we see the music is there. I said, no, it's not music. You're seeing books with dots in them. Music is what you hear. Mm-hmm. It's not in the book. But what the performer does is he takes the book out and he realizes, he brings it to life. That's what the performer does. And that's in the same way when we talk about I'm at the limit of my hearing, that can be true for the performer as well. Mm-hmm. You know, a gifted performer can show you things that you never imagined in the music. It doesn't matter who you are as a composer. I mean, the last time this piece was, I talked about Satyagraha again because I saw it recently, that when I hear a gifted performer performing, they hear things in the music. What they bring is their own creativity. They bring it to the part. They bring it to what they play. And sometimes they'll say, how would you like me to do it? And I said, I have nothing to offer you. I'm not going to, and I won't tell them. If I tell them, why should I limit what they're going to do? It's like putting handcuffs on them. No, you just sing it. Let me see what you do. And I found when I take that approach, and when the director, Fanny McDermott and Julian Crouch, who did it, they're doing that Baroque opera. What's it called? Enchanted, yeah. Thank you. Say it again.
Enchanted Island.
The Enchanted Island. They directed that recently.
Mm-hmm.
But when they said they were going to do Satyagraha, and they said, well, how would you like to do it? And I said, well, why don't you just go ahead and do it? And they said, are you going to come to rehearsals? I said, no. And they said, will you come to the dress rehearsal? I said, yes, I'll come to the dress rehearsal. I'm not coming before then. Because by then, it's done.
So you're not going to give them notes or any
Nothing.
suggestions?
So I went to hear it, and what they did was far better than what directions I might have given them. Because they went someplace that they wouldn't have gone. Mm-hmm. There's no point in my seeing somebody do what I know what to do. They were showing me something which I didn't know about the piece. And it was, I think that when you learn to trust yourself when you play, then you learn to trust other people. That relationship with the music is a treasured one. It doesn't come from taking a course at Juilliard, which I did do that.
I actually want to talk a little bit about your beginnings. You just always seem to have known what you wanted to do. You never had that kind of
I was very
questioning.
fortunate that way, that's true.
And I just wonder, so many artists do have kind of come somewhat from a place of both confidence and insecurity.
I thought you were going to say ignorance.
No. But is there any sense of, did you ever have self-doubt, or did you always just know you wanted to do this and could do it well and would succeed?
I didn't worry about it very much, Robin. I thought I always wanted to do music. It was a question, would I be a player or a conductor or a composer? I became a composer when I asked myself the question, where does music come from? That sealed my fate in a certain way. I never found out, but it kept me busy for another 50 years. Well, I could say another 60 years at this point.
You wrote your first piece at like 15.
Yeah, so it kept me busy for 60 years. So, but I always knew I would do music. I wasn't sure where I would land, where I would end up, and that was settled fairly quickly. Did I have confidence that, or lack of confidence?
Didn't your parents kind of question what you were doing?
They were the ones that helped me with my, this is curious, this is very often can happen. They encouraged me to take music lessons, and then when I said I was going to go to music school, they were appalled. No. You can't have it both ways, folks. Right. And they were very pleased with that I liked music, but it was supposed to, they like many, people who had, this was right after the Second World War, and people were experiencing something like a middle-class life for the first time. Those that remember it. My father bought his first car in 1947. Things like that were happening then. People came back from the war, and there was a kind of a economic boom going on, and music was part of our education, but we weren't not supposed to take it that seriously. Of course, I made the mistake, or rather, what you want to call it, but that's what, to me, it was the most important thing. I was very fortunate to have had their support during those early years. They sent me to the Peabody Conservatory when I was 8 years old, and I was the youngest student there.
You went to the University of Chicago at 15 years old, didn't you?
I did that too.
Did you graduate?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, I know you went to Juilliard, so I wondered if maybe you did that early.
I did afterwards.
Okay.
When I went to Juilliard, I had the university education behind me, so I didn't have to take any of the academic courses there, and I could spend all my time with music. And what I did is besides doing the composition course, which I did, I also audited the conducting. Not that I became a conductor, but through studying music in that way, I learned a lot about music. I learned about music structure, and I learned about the classical music in a very good way. And then from there, I went to study with Nadia Boulanger in Paris. So, in case I spent 20 years going to music school. When I was 28, I had finished. I was done, and I never wanted to teach because I said I've had enough of school, and I never did teach, not in an organized way. But the question about how I felt about it, I always felt this is what I was supposed to do. My parents were a little slow in catching on. My mother did live to see me at the Met, though I think she was puzzled by it. She had come to see a concert at Queens College in 1967, about 9 years before the Met, and there were only 6 people in the audience, and she was one of them. She came back to New York 9 years later to see the Metropolitan House sold out. I've always meant to ask her what she thought had happened. But you never ask those questions when you can, you know.
I think she would just tell you, unsolicited.
You don't know my mother. But she understood that something had happened, but I don't know what she thought of it, really. But it was puzzling for her. That was a generation of people for whom music could have easily been vaudeville or playing playing on Broadway. I mean, they were not necessarily interested in classical music. We had relatives who were in popular music. I think that they really thought that I was going to do what my Uncle Henry was, which was become a drummer, end up playing in the Borscht Belt and in the Catskills. But that isn't what I did. But from their point of view, it might not have been that different. On the other hand, my father loved music, and he taught me a lot about music from the way he listened.
You listened to radio with him, right?
We listened to records.
Records. But he fixed radios or something.
He did that too.
There was, you have said that you're both you're you're Taoist, Jewish, Christian, Hindu. I mean, is it really that you have...
Why are you stopping?
I
didn't.
You are clearly, you have a sort of a spiritual side to you that's very strong.
It's not my side, it's the side of humanity.
But you don't particularly identify with any one?
Or them all, or identify with them all. I mean, this is part of our human heritage, no matter where we're from.
What about the fact, don't you have a meditation room and do Qigong and...
Do I, or...
Do you?
What do you care?
Philip.
That's
interesting.
You can't, I'm not holding back one.
No, but the idea of sitting every day in a sitting room and...
Tough, huh?
Yeah. And also doing a kind of form of Tai Chi, and when you're such a busy guy.
Well, actually, a lot of these things just keep you're mentally and physically healthy. That's what you want to do. If I have the same workload at the age I am now that I had 20 years ago, it hasn't slowed down. And it doesn't look like it's going to, but to do that, it means taking care of yourself. It means it's diet and exercise and mental preparation. You can't. This doesn't happen by accident. It can happen by accident, and I've seen pictures of Picasso in his 90s painting. Maybe I don't know what he did, but he was a fantastic person, wasn't he? Still, I knew Isamu Noguchi when he was in his 80s. He was full of life and running around. I don't know what they did. I find that the kinds of, let's just call it maintenance that we do, whether emotional or physical and diet-wise, this is extremely important. You
still have kind of spiritual advisors that you consult?
Yeah, I may give you a call now and then.
I'm available. I have a very high hourly rate.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
I've heard
hear
that.
our last clip, which is from Einstein on the Beach.
The day with its cares and perplexities is ended, and the night is now upon us. The night should be a time of peace and tranquility, a time to relax and be calm. We have need of a soothing story to banish the disturbing thoughts of the day, to set at rest our troubled minds, and put at ease our ruffled spirits. And what sort of story shall we hear? Ah, it will be a familiar story. A story that is so very, very old, and yet it is so new. It is the old, old story of love.
Were you like checking your messages just
I
now?
was just taking the time.
Okay. In 1981, you said, "I think my best music is ahead of me." Would you still say that
I
now?
would say that.
You would?
Yeah. There's a new symphony that you could thank you. I mean, yeah, but I think most musicians or writers will think that what they're doing is more interesting because it's new. But the new symphony will be, you can hear it at Carnegie Hall on the 31st. And it feels to me like I have a feeling for the language of the orchestra better than I've had before. I feel this last symphony has given me the confidence I really need to have in order to continue doing the work and the kind of work I do. This last symphony has been very rewarding in that way, and it wasn't easy to write. But it was something, it's almost like it was waiting for me to write it, and then I did it, and I went through it, and then when I finally heard it, I said, oh, okay, now we'll go on to the next thing. I have a tremendous confidence in this generation of people under 30. I know some very talented and gifted composers, and what they are bringing to their music is something which my generation didn't. We were embroiled in ideological arguments about music, what the future of music should be, whether it was going to be 12-tone music or tonal music, and it was basically a waste of time because we were writing our music that we were going to write, and the other people were writing the music they were going to write, and the rest was just beating their gums, as we say. It didn't amount to very much. What I find in the younger, I find that they have almost no interest in ideological arguments at all. What they're interested in is where the music can take them and where they can take the music. It's a very open palette. It includes global music, it includes dodecaphonic music, that's dissonant music or consonant music. The lines between commercial music, popular music, and art music have given way for a lot of people. No one in that generation worries very much about the integrity of the music being compromised because they make a living at it, which was a big issue when I was a kid. If you actually made a living as a composer, then there must be something wrong with you. I guess it would have been wrong with Verdi too, because he made a good living at it. Beethoven didn't so well, but composers were like everyone else. Some people made a living and some people didn't. Didn't have that much to do with the music. Now, I have a lot of confidence in the young generation because they are not so handicapped with the past as we were. Partly because the arena is so broad now. If music can include electronics, it can include improvisation, it can include people who play the violin and sing at the same time. There's so many. In my own music, I feel that it's influenced my music too. When I'm hearing a piece of mine, like I wrote a violin piano sonata for Maria Bachmann in the last movement, it sounds to me like a piece of music I heard played by a fiddle player in Cape Breton. And I played it for a friend of mine from Cape Breton. I said, what do you think of that? He said, it sounds like a piece from here. You know, he said, and he wanted me to write it out for him, but I didn't. I think it was a little, it wasn't quite like that, but it was a sense of that. The feeling is that quality doesn't reside necessarily in a specific lineage or argument. Quality may reside in a much broader idea of what lineage can mean. And by that we mean it can be global, it can be commercial, it can be art music. What I've noticed, and I think most of us have at one point or another, is that talent is something, it's a quality that seems to come up spontaneously. It's gender-free, it has nothing to do with race or age or place. Talent is talent. Someone said, well, why did you do a symphony with David Bowie and Brian Eno? I said, because they're such good songwriters. And I said, well, composers used to take popular songs and put in their music. I said, well, if Brahms did it, why can't I do it? So David Bowie and Brian Eno, there they are. Was I hoping to sell records? Yeah, I was. And did I sell records? Yes, I did. That wasn't bad. The exercise was to see whether that music could be part of my music, and I found it could be. But in terms of what happened 200 years from now, I just hope someone's around listening to something that I'm not so sure sometimes.
I want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you, Philip.